Welcome to another episode of The Artsy Raven, a show about writing and publishing with your host, J.F. Garrard.
Welcome to another episode of the Artsy Raven. Today, our special guest is Phoebe An Lee. Phoebe is a writer of sorts. She has written and edited for various media, such as newspapers, marketing collateral, project proposals, and other corporate communication materials. Her debut middle grade martial arts fantasy novel, Quincy Zi and the Nine-Tailed Fox, is a nod to the anime and martial arts stories she loved as a child. She's a treasurer and programmer for the Canadian Authors Association in Toronto. She mostly lives in daydream-land but is otherwise based in Toronto, Canada. So welcome, Phoebe.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and why you started writing.
Yeah, so I've always loved to write ever since I was a kid, but I never really thought that it could be a profession or I could write a book when I grew up. When I thought about what I wanted to do as a profession, I knew that I wanted writing to be involved somehow. And so that's why I went to journalism school because I thought, that would be a job where I would get to write. As I was doing that, I did like it, but then eventually I just found myself pretty unhappy and I didn't know why. And that was when I started just, writing short stories for myself. And and then I just felt so at peace, like that was what I was supposed to do. So I realized that I liked writing fiction, not facts, like journalism. um, yeah, and so that's how I ended up wanting to write more fiction. And eventually I got the idea to write Quincy Z and the Nine-Tailed Fox because I thought about the things that I loved as a kid and what I really loved to read. And yeah, I loved martial arts and, fighting anime and stuff. So I wanted to create kind of the same thing.
So tell me, how long did it take you, and did you learn any lessons from journalism school that helped you through the process of writing the book?
I think in terms of being able to write concisely, being able to really get your point across. And with journalism, it's very different from, say, an academic form of writing. Journalism, you always have to keep the audience in mind. You have to write it in a way that the general public would understand, even though you're writing about politics or something complicated, like, economics or whatever, but you have to write it in a way that everybody understands it. And so, yeah, I think that helped with my fiction writing. And also, my previous day jobs, I was working in communications and marketing. Um, and I had to do a lot of, writing and editing other people's work as well. So that definitely helped in, improving my writing and editing skills.
So how long did it take you to write a book?
Oh my gosh, like almost 10 years.
Yeah, we were surprised. Yes, it does take a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was also because, I had a full-time job. It's not like I was writing full-time. And also writing my first book, it was more about uh, just learning how to write. So yeah, it's a long process of just like learning the craft of writing, learning how to develop characters, how to develop a plot, how to develop an actual story that has a plot. Because I think for a lot of beginning writers, including myself, when we first start writing, we have all these scenarios in our head and we make our characters do all sorts of things, but just because they're doing a lot of things and fighting bad guys doesn't mean that it's a plot. You have to have stakes involved. The character has to have a goal. They have to have something they want, and the ending has to have, a resolution. Do they actually get what they want? Do they fulfill their goals? So yeah, in the beginning I made, all of the classic mistakes that beginning writers do. And eventually it was just, so for those 10 years it was just really about learning and, developing the book and juggling, different aspects of your life with writing.
So tell me about Quincy Z. Like, what inspired you to create this character and write this book?
Yeah, so when I first got the idea for Quincy Zi, I was actually like in grad school doing journalism, and that was when I was kind of unhappy. So I think the idea just came to my head because I just thought about the things that, used to make me happy, in my life as a kid. And so I wanted to write like a martial arts kind of story. And I'm also interested in like psychology. So at the time, I was reading a lot of Carl Jung, and the shadow side and integrating our shadow selves with our with our ego and a lot of things about the inner child and integrating, our inner child with our ego so that we become a more well-balanced individual. So I kind of wanted to explore those concepts in my book as well. And I guess those concepts, it's like almost a metaphor that Quincy goes through in his own hero's journey of, in the book, Quincy has the power to control the shadows. So, that's kind of a metaphor for, Carl Jung's like theories about the shadow self, the shadow side, and being able to control that and integrating it with yourself. So that's why. And yeah, so I think that's how, I pretty much got the idea for Quincy.
Now, you mentioned nine-tailed fox. Can you explain a little bit about where you drew some of that mythology from?
Yeah, so the nine-tailed fox, it's a prominent figure in Chinese mythology, and also other countries like Japan and Korea. They have their own versions of the nine-tailed fox. And in Chinese mythology, the nine-tailed fox is, basically uh almost like a shapeshifter, I would say. Like they can become a beautiful woman who kind of tempts men and stuff like that. um and I thought that was I think it's because I grew up with this kind of mythology that for me it was kind of a normal thing, I guess, to include it in my book. And um, yeah, and the nine-tailed fox in my I don't want to like give anything away, but basically, it has very important ties to Chinese history as well. Um, and yeah, yeah, I think you'd have to kind of read the book to kind of figure that out.
Oh
But
gosh. And I
yeah.
wanted to ask you, did you see the K-drama, The Tale of the Nine-Tailed?
I have heard
Yeah.
about it, but I haven't seen it. Have
Okay.
you?
Yeah, yeah, I'm in the middle of the second season. Like, there's two seasons. It has
Oh,
Lee Dong-wook is the main lead,
yeah,
and he's a
yeah,
very famous Korean actor. But it's
yeah.
well done. I mean, I think in the beginning of you know how they have the introduction? There's too much romance stuff in it, or else I would get my son to watch it, but he's just like, ah, girls. So he won't.
But do you like it?
It was well done. It was well done.
Okay.
The second one is a bit more strong. Like I think the female characters in the second one are more badass, I guess you
Oh,
could
okay. Is
say.
it
Yeah.
like, do they fight and stuff? Is it
Yeah, there's
like
a
much?
lot of fighting, so I think you'll like it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
because the
Yeah.
first one's like modern times about this fox that is very old, thousands of years old. And then the
Uh-huh.
second season, somehow he accidentally travels back in time to 1938. And it's like almost like a Korean Western at that point with like guns and samurais. And it's when
Oh,
Japan occupied Korea. So,
okay. Interesting.
but anyhow,
Yeah.
okay. So, are you going to have a sequel to your book or are you going to keep writing?
Yeah, it is a series, so I planned for 3 books. And the
Okay.
second one I plan to release later this year, hopefully.
Okay, tell me about like the back cover. What's the story about Quincy?
Okay, so Quincy is a boy who grew up in a secret society of martial artists, and he gets sent on a mission to destroy this mysterious otherworld creature. And so, along the way on his mission, he discovers secrets to his mother's past.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So throughout the series, he'll piece together like what happened to his mother and her last mission. And then at the end, he finally puzzles like the missing pieces to his life.
Oh, very cool. Okay. And then it'll continue on to the next one,
Yes.
picking
Yes.
up from the end. Okay. Now, what do you hope to like? What's the message you hope to convey in the book to your readers?
I think just like when I was a kid and then watching all those shows like, Naruto, or like Yu Yu Hakusho, Yu Yu Hakusho is my favorite anime. And I mean, I think for me, the reason why,
You really? Okay. Yeah.
wait, really? It's like you don't like it?
I did never watched it. Yeah.
You know what? I think the reason why I like those like fighting anime is they were so inspiring to me because they're always put in these, really life and death situations. But somehow they always like fight through it and come out triumphant, right? And they also have the help of their friends, like alongside fighting alongside with them.
Mhm.
And I love that so much. I feel like in my life, like my real life, if we use the metaphor of fighting as, say, fighting for our dreams, fighting for what we want, and, with the support of our loved ones beside us, I think that's just a great way, I think, to live life. And I hope that kids who read Quincy will have that sense of adventure, will feel that sense of adventure, but at the same time, realize that, you don't have to do things alone. Like it's more fun if you have your friends around you to, like fight for your dreams or fight for whatever you want.
Cool. So I guess you're working on the second book. Are you doing any other writing or anything
Yes.
else?
So
Yeah.
aside from trying to work on my second book, I'm working on a new series as well. So it's still going to be martial arts fantasy, but with romance. So this one will be aimed for more YA readers. Quincy is more middle grade. And the new fantasy romance martial arts series will be more for YA.
Cool. Now
Yeah.
you're also quite active on social media. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the things you do there?
Yeah, so I have Instagram, so it's phoebe.an.lee, and also TikTok. So basically I post updates about my writing and anything I'm doing on the side. And I've tried doing a podcast as well. And it's on YouTube under my name as well. And it's called Shelf Time Muses. So basically I interview anybody who is interesting to me, because for writers we have this term called shelf time, where we shelve our manuscript for a bit, we put it on the shelf while we go out do other things. So that's why it's called shelf time. And then muses as in, inspiration. So while my manuscript is on the shelf, I go look for inspiration, in the form of other people that I find interesting.
So Phoebe, you're going to do a bit of a reading for us. Can you tell us what you're going to read and give us a bit of context?
Yes. Okay. So this is my book. This is the author copy. That's why there's like a line there. But yeah, so this is Quincy Zi and the Nine-Tailed Fox. So I'm going to be reading from the first chapter. This is the last half of the first chapter where Quincy's master is talking about the apprentice test, which all of them will have to go through. Okay. So I'll start. Okay. At the training hall, Quincy fell in line with the others as Grandmaster Cleaver paced back and forth in front of them. Listen up. We, the Secret Society of the Black Scabbards, have a long-standing tradition of sending our young novices into harm's way. The apprentice test is a test of the deadliest order. Quincy couldn't count the number of times he had heard this speech, especially as he had already failed the apprentice test once. For 13 years, he and the other novices had trained to become the best martial arts warriors the world had never seen. That's right. From the time they came out of their mother's wombs screaming and kicking, they hadn't stopped screaming and kicking with increasing skill and sophistication as their training progressed. In secret, of course. We have these training sessions so that you're well prepared when we send you out on your own. Some of you have already taken and passed the test with flying colors. Some of you, well, let's just say you have one more chance to prove yourself. Quincy felt Grandmaster Cleaver's stare linger on him for a bit too long. He tried not to wilt, not just from the thought of failing the apprentice test for good, but for what would happen if he did. If he failed the exam, he would serve the scabbards in another capacity, like cooking or taking care of the temple grounds. If there was one thing Quincy hated more than the dark, it was boring chores. He would never get to live a life of adventure, being sent on missions all over the world to battle all sorts of dangerous creatures unknown to man. The trial you will undertake goes beyond any normal human capability, a trial that will test you beyond your very limits and break you. Oh, make no mistake, you will be broken. Of course, not everyone is cut out to take on such a trial, but you are not everyone, are you? Grandmaster Cleaver paused and raised an eyebrow, daring anyone to answer. Quincy didn't think she really expected an answer. She shook her head slowly. No, you are certainly not everyone. You are a scabbard. You were born for precisely moments like these. While everyone else walks around with sleep in their eyes, you see through the veil. You know better the dangers that lurk behind every street, every building, in the shadows. She continued, pacing back and forth without breaking eye contact, while Quincy stared straight ahead. You've seen what others do not and cannot see. You know that monsters under the bed and ghost stories are not make-believe. You know the other world exists. And we, the secret society of the Black Scabbards, are the only ones strong enough to protect humanity from the other world. You are the only ones strong enough. Grandmaster Cleaver stopped pacing and stared straight at Quincy. Or are you? Her eye gleamed brightly. Well, we'll find out, won't we? And that's it.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
For more upcoming episodes of the Artsy Raven about writing and publishing, visit us at jfgarage.com/arpodcast. A reminder to Patreon subscribers that there is bonus content available for every episode on the Patreon website. If you enjoyed the show, you can show your appreciation by buying us some digital coffee. The Artsy Raven is produced by J.F. Garrard. The voice in the show's introduction is Chris Gorman, and music is by Tim Moore. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe.